Anthony, what's your view?
Yes, good evening, Ian. Well, I said to you about a week ago when this insanity broke out that this was just unsustainable, this ridiculous thing. So thankfully, there's been an outbreak of sanity in the White House, it seems. I think the voices of, that side of the Republican Party have won. And thank goodness, that's all I can say. Hallelujah.
Well, are you really sure that it's voices within the Republican Party? Isn't it voices on Wall Street?
Exactly, because when there was that rumour went round of a freeze on the tariffs, 90-day freeze, we saw an upward movement, didn't we? A brief one on the Nasdaq. And I think this must have leaked earlier because there was a recovery. And, of course, it has such huge knock-on effects for everyone in this country. I might also say that I think Keir Starmer's approach, the calm sort of non-retaliatory approach, has won and provided a kind of safety net with this, a sort of anchor. They've all gone up.
Well, I think you're right, but the EU have been quite belligerent in their language, and yet they're now going to be on the same tariffs as us. So you could argue that the EU are the big winners out of this today.
Oh well, we can't complain, and perhaps we can get it done a little bit further, with a little bit more. I don't know, the King Charles stuff. I mean, I know I've said this before. I think this does play a kind of role in this. That Trump has seen, what he's getting from us, which is not just the trade, but also the pomp. And perhaps more pomp is coming.
Well, if I was Keir Starmer, I'd get this state visit organised very, very, very quickly, pull out all the stops, make him feel like the king that he so wants to be, and then at the end of it, say, so, Donald, are you going to remove all the tariffs from us? Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye. And job done. But I suspect it won't quite turn out like that. Anthony, thank you. Let's go to Miles in Croydon. Miles, good evening.
Hello, Ian. Good evening. Well, it's... I was going to say it's been a roller coaster ride over the last 3 months on defence, on international development, on the economy, and of course also on the environment. We've seen news today about Donald Trump pushing hard to dig out as much coal as he can out of the ground. So it isn't over, and it's been hugely damaging, and it will continue to be hugely damaging. But I think, obviously, it's extremely embarrassing if you were Donald Trump, what's happened today. But it's the longer-term damage, I think, in terms of reputation that will last longer than the share price, and the economy position. I think what has happened over the last few months, the world won't forget for a long time, and it does rebalance and make people reassess, just what sort of relationship people have with the US, and also how important it is to have relationships elsewhere.
I think that's absolutely bang on, because actions have consequences, and I think if as a country you lose trust, not just with other countries, with other world leaders, but also with the people that make an economy tick, and that is business. I think that is incredibly damaging, not just international business either. I think if there'll be a lot of domestic American business people feeling really anxious about the future today, because what businesses want most is stability. And of course, we saw in this country that with all of the Brexit decisions, that one of the main results from that was that people weren't certain about what the future was, what regulatory system they would be operating under, and therefore investment reduced, albeit temporarily. But that similar sort of thing is inevitably going to happen in the United States now.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen quite a lot of backtracking on environment and broader sustainability on DEI policies for companies, and this is all being driven by having to jump to what Donald Trump's government tells them they have to jump to. But there's only so far you can push people in the direction that the world is not going in before people say, that's the wrong road for us, goodbye, we'll go elsewhere and take our money with it. The idea that you're going to, as he's announced, I think it was today, this big push that everything's going to be coal-powered and we're going to go mad on coal. And I mean, it's just a nonsense. I mean, how can that be supported by international businesses and investors who have got a clear direction of travel, which is important for the world?
His view is his view will be, well, if China's doing it, we can do it. No one can criticise us because, China's still building, I think, one new coal power station virtually every week. So he's thinking, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, without any consideration at all for the environment, for the planet. Miles, great call, thank you. By the way, this phone-in is open to the female sex as well. Every single call on my board at the moment is from a gentleman. I'm sure they're all fantastic, and we'll go through as many as we can, but we'd love to have some female perspectives on this as well. Peter's in West Hampstead. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Ian. Trump seems to have completely forgotten that there is a principle that certain countries can produce certain products much better than any others and should really be left, ideally, to specialise. Who's going to be able to produce an unblended vintage malt whiskey apart from Scotland? It's crazy for the Californians to attempt it. When it comes to maple syrup, the Canadians have really got this tied up. If you want a really good Somerset cheddar cheese, I don't mean the rubbish they sell in supermarkets, but the proper Somerset product, nobody can produce this better or adequately than the West Country people. And his tariff regime simply doesn't recognise this, that on many occasions it's better to let countries specialise in what they're good at. When it comes to big, floaty, six-seater cars, the Americans are peerless. But when it comes to small city cars for our somewhat medieval towns, they're rubbish.
Well, my experience of American cars in general is that they're virtually all rubbish. Even the big ones are not, that the build quality, the finishing is nowhere near the quality that you get from European cars and Japanese cars. And that's why those cars became very popular in America, because American consumers don't rate the cars that are built in their own country. Yes.
I was trying to be as kind as possible, actually. I was trying to think of something the Americans are good at.
They are good at a huge amount of things, but they're never going to win over people's hearts and minds. And sometimes, in trade, that is what should happen. When you get reports, I was watching a report last night on the television on the Cognac region in France, which, as you said, they are superb at producing brandy. I don't drink, but it is apparently the best in the world. And their industry is going to be decimated by this. And Donald Trump won't have thought of that at all. He doesn't think of the human consequences of a lot of his actions.
I have actually just thought of something. A two-seater airplane made by Burt Rutan. People can put into Google Rutan Long Easy, and no other country's come up with anything like this.
Anthony in Cardiff says, it's all very well saying buy British, but most working class people don't have that luxury. They will buy whatever their limited means allow them to, and it's not often British, let's be honest. Well, I suppose it depends on the products, doesn't it? Because some people say, well, we don't manufacture anything anymore, so we can't buy British. Baloney. We're the 9th biggest manufacturing nation in the world still. So there are plenty of things that we can buy. But of course, if you want to buy, I don't know, let's think of something. You want to buy a fridge, and you can buy one that is British for £500, and then you see one made in China or the United States for £400. Well, if you're on a budget, you're not. There's a limit to your patriotism, isn't there? Let's go to William in Catford. Hello, William.
Hey, hi there, Ed. Great show. Just quickly, really, I just think that everybody's been negative about US and Trump because of the tariff. And I think that this is actually a new ways of, doing things that is playing out right in front of us. Earlier on, you had your guest that was talking about tariff. I really didn't like his tone on China, saying that China is not the good country, or we should forget what their governments are doing, or look at the US, they are the bad. That is what I take away. That is the headline for me.
Well, he didn't say that. That's the greatest caricature of what he said.
But he was playing along that line. And when you dig down into China, in the last year, Western companies that have reduced their operation or completely exited China, like market. We're talking about, different sectors that this is actually now happening into: Microsoft, IBM, Intel, Walmart, Volvo moving all their production back to Belgium. These are big companies in the last 12 months that they actually exiting China itself, the market. So I really don't think that people just looking at ways of, saying that, it's all about emotions. I think that they have to look at the data itself. And you've just said it. We should be, in Britain, what we should be talking about is all these companies are exiting this market. How can we get into that talk? How can we get those deals, to actually bring these things here? Because we have the capabilities there. We have the leverage as well. But again, I really don't think that we have the government that has got the guts like what they're doing in the States. I think that there's a strategy behind this, but people are not saying it. What they think about is just Trump. They don't like him. But the guy is actually making things happening. I don't like him as well, but he's actually saying he said, I'm going to do this, and he's doing it. And a lot of the people that are calling you, they cannot even actually say if they put them into that role, they will never actually amount to anything because they cannot stand by their words. So let's give it to him. The fact that he's doing it, I give him courage.
He's not standing by his word. He's U-turned within a week because forget China for a moment. No, hang on a second. Forget China for a moment and what he's done to China. All of these 75 countries that have contacted the US government to try and come to an agreement, he's now dropped the tariffs on them to 10%, and that has to be because of the market reaction. So you say, well, he's being brave. He's got no strategy. As somebody said earlier, he's a tactician, not a strategist, and he's had to do a U-turn because the markets will not stand it, and that was eminently predictable right at the start.
I disagree. I really don't think that the mighty power of US will be doing something without a strategy. I just totally disagree there. I just think that because we can say things to get reactions of people, but I really don't think that the USA will be doing things without a strategy. It's just impossible. This is a playbook.
In any other president, I would agree with you.
Well, that's fine. We disagree to agree. But I just don't believe that, they're doing things without any strategy. They know where they're going. And I think that the truth is that there's so many things that we don't know, but we're just trying to make as we go along. But the people sitting down, actually plotting this, they know exactly what they're doing. And they're very critical in the way they're doing it. And I just think that when you look at everything that's been playing out, I think in the next 3 or 4 months, things will come together. The one person I would say that I would give it to is James O'Brien, your colleague. I know they like to pick his side, but he never actually gives a solution. He just says things that just make people go mad so that they can call it. But he only talks to people that wants to talk to. But I just think
with respect, it is not up to James O'Brien or myself, or indeed radio presenters across the station, to come up with solutions that governments have to come up with. We can maybe have the odd idea from time to time, but I don't think I would trust any of my colleagues to come up with a trade policy, and I certainly wouldn't trust myself to do it either. William, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Alan in Aberdeen. Alan, hello.
Hi. Where to start? It's just the most bizarre set of circumstances. To answer your question, I guess, would I boycott US goods? I probably don't buy much US manufactured goods, but I would certainly think about it. Probably the only American device I can own is probably the one I'm talking to you on. And Apple seemed to be a company that are still rational. So, I've got nothing against the people there. But to your previous caller, I'd like a drink of...
And Alan has disappeared using his American-made phone. So, sorry about that. Alan, thank you very much indeed for your call. We'll come to more of your calls in just... Actually, let's go to another one. Let's go to Billy in Ventnor. Hello, Billy.
Hi, evening, Ian. So
Hi.
I'm calling in because you may have remembered a couple of nights ago I actually asked if Trump was going to backtrack. So aside from feeling quite...
man ahead of your time, I've always said so.
Well, you're very kind, Ian. I don't know quite what to say to that, so I'm just going to say thank you. But I've got to say, I think that what this shows us, and I think you know the answer to this, I believe that you know this already, so I'm not pointing out anything that you're not aware of. That is that Trump doesn't know what he's doing. And so the way we retaliate to this isn't by going off on a boycott and avoiding American products. I think that's the wrong action to take here. We play him at his own game. Perhaps what the government could do is do a little bit of making it up as they go along themselves. It's a negotiation at the end of the day. This is how Trump sees it. We saw that conversation in the White House with Zelensky a few weeks ago when he was talking about who has all of the cards. Well, at the moment, the world, because of his decisions, are quite literally, what is it you said a couple of nights ago? We're a banker's sneeze away from a global crisis. So I think what the government should be doing right now is actually discussing a plan forward and perhaps throw it out there. Why don't we settle for 2%, Trump? Or like you were saying, I totally agree with what you said. Come on over, Trump. Let's get this state visit underway. Get him into a nice side room with his advisors and a nice fountain pen at the ready. Get him to sign something. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, as they say. Done and dusted. And I feel like that's the way we've got to do it here. I mean, Trump doesn't know what he's doing, does he? Let's face it.
Were I an advisor in number 10 Downing Street, that's exactly what I would be doing now, sort of like flatter his ego as much as possible, get him a private dinner with William and Kate, and as you say, job done.
Kudos to the Prime Minister for doing a first-class job with this. He's left us in a very, very, very good position. On the subject of the overall tariffs on China and its effect on the global market, I recall about a month ago Mr. Trump saying that to President Putin over the airwaves that he was going to ruin him if he didn't stop this senseless war. Oil prices have tumbled $10 a barrel since this started, and Goldman Sachs is looking at $55 a barrel by the end of, I believe it's this year, which means that Mr. P is going to be very, very short because all that money is earmarked for his war machine. China has now firmly had the door shut, slammed in its face, and is going to lose a ton of money too. So here we have these two belligerents, one a kleptocracy, the other run by the Chinese Communist Party, which are a bunch of unprincipled thugs who have taken over their country, and the Chinese people deserve freedom from them. And he's given them a good slapping. So also the Saudis are going to increase oil production. They just announced that, so oil prices are going to drop even further. So well done, Washington. I think everybody who's turned up and has not retaliated has proved to be a friend to Washington and can expect, as the Secretary of Treasury said, to be rewarded. I don't know what form that reward will come in, but increased trade and free trade zones are certainly in the offing, and we'll deal with those two miscreants as occasions arise.
Okay, John, thank you. Murdo is in Auchtermuchty in Scotland. Hello, Murdo.
How are you getting on, Ian?
I'm all right, thank you. What would you like to say?
Good. Yeah, just a couple of points. I'm looking forward to the Trump administration ended and all the MAGA hats we can use here in Auchtermuchty for Make Auchtermuchty Great Again. But there is one point that has been missed here. You know, there tonight, Donald Trump saying he's reducing the tariffs to 10%. If he gets away with imposing a 10% tariff over everyone, he's 10% ahead of where he was when he came to power. So, that's quite a shrewd move. You know, you take away all the bluff and bluster, the 165%, you know, this big auction that was going on. If that's his final achievement on this whole thing, 10%, he said, you know, if he'd set out to say, I'm going to put a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the country, but what we're going to do is we're going to start higher, get everyone, you know, up in arms and drop it to 10 and they'll be happy. So quite a shrewd move, in my opinion. What do you think?
Somebody's saying on a WhatsApp message here, well done to the Penguins at facing down Trump, nothing to do with Starmer.